All right, welcome to episode 3 of the How to Win the Harbor Freight Tools for Schools prize for teaching excellence. The first episode, we had Tay. He's the director for the program, talking about kind of what they're looking for in the application process. Then the second episode, we had Jordan, a fellow winner last year. He talked about how he used AI to refine his application. But a lot of that we talked about, like not letting AI take away the personality of the application, which is what they're really looking for. So today we're bringing on Matthew Barbercheck, who won this. Oh, what was it? 2017? Is that right?
2018.
2018. So one of the early winners in this prize program's history. And he was one who helped me out with my application. There was really no AI when I did that. I mean, there was probably AI in 2022, but that wasn't, really wasn't the thing. And so he was kind of like my editor when I started doing this, like my person I could bounce this off of. And Matt's really good at getting this concise, to the point, and memorable. As kind of his hook and his thing that he kept going with me. So we're going to let Matt talk about pretty much, we're just going to dive into it. Like we'll get, I'm going to stay concise here. So Barbercheck, introduce yourself, tell us when you won real quick, and then we'll just get going.
Yeah. So I won in 2018, and it was the first year they ever did it was 2017, and I applied both years. So I had 1 year where I didn't win, and then the second year I won. So I've applied twice. I've helped three of the 5 people I've helped ended up winning. You're one of them, as far as like editing and different things. And I'm just excited about the opportunity, because this is a good process to showcase the awesome work that skilled trades educators are doing. So if I can help anyone make that more successful, that's a good day in my books. So yeah, one thing, like what I want to address right out of the gate is like, it's not a sweepstakes, right? You have kind of like a lot of work in front of you if you're taking this application, and it's worthwhile work. It's meaningful work. I've yet to run into an applicant who kind of treated it like a waste of time, or the way we treat what administrators have us do. This seems to be much higher value. And I guess one way to think about it, like just a little mindset to experiment with, is, so when I wrote it, I got like a $15,000 personal check. And I don't know what the numbers are now, but just insert whatever number. And it was like, if someone was paying me $15,000 to showcase this program's, like trying to separate myself from the task a little bit, to showcase this program's attributes, how would I do that? Like that's kind of like, to get the most value out of this process. I think that's a great mindset to at least experiment with and maybe hold, because it's probably the most you'll ever be paid for your writing in your life. So far, it is me. I mean,
hands down.
Yeah, like dollars per word is pretty high. So, the bar's high, and that's a reasonable thing to expect. So I'll just go into a little bit like how, I created a foundation for my entries and then kind of build it out from there. So
Perfect.
With a lot of my writing, it starts with a word vomit or a stream of consciousness, and it's just get it out of your system. It's all internalized, get it externalized, the good, the bad, the ugly. And what you're doing is basically creating a treasure hunt of your winning moments in the classroom. And so that word vomit, there's going to be some treasures in there. There's going to be some stuff you need to toss out. But that's kind of the start. And you're kind of going in a way with a little bit of a done is better than perfect mindset, So you're just word vomiting, getting basically the minimum viable product of your work done. And then you can kind of better approach it at a later time with like a more optimized like mindset. It'll be better filtered. And so getting back to the treasure hunt example. Um, once you've done your word vomit, or maybe you skip that or whatever else. But the next thing I highly recommend is, like, there's a temptation, and I'm not immune to this, to like maybe wait till the weekend before it's due to complete this application. And it's just too robust for that. And I've been on the judging side of things, and you can tell when
Yeah.
that's the case. When
Oh,
I
yeah.
applied the second year, I broke it down into like mini deadlines. So question one was due at this day, question two was due at this day. And I did that just to make it sustainable for me. But there's an added benefit that I came across. And this kind of goes along with the treasure hunt visual. When question one says, how do you insert whatever, teaching attribute they're trying to highlight, maintain a safe lab or whatever else? Well, if that's your prompt, and you're doing that not the weekend before it's due, but you're doing it on a Tuesday, and you're going to work, well, like, I named my daughter Rowan. I've never heard that name in real life besides one other time. Now I hear it everywhere, right? Like, you buy a new car, you don't know anyone else that's driving that
Bye.
car, you
Yep.
get it, you see it everywhere, right? Like,
Yep. Yep.
that's something our brain does. Take advantage of that. So now if the prompt is, how do you keep your lab safe? And I'm just using surface level examples here. Now you're going into your teaching day, and that prompt is circulating, and you're gonna begin to see answers to that prompt, maybe everywhere, and that's like a really good practice for capturing those winning moments, from your day. And it's easy to overlook it when you're in the thick of it. But that's, not only does it help break down the daunting task that it can be, but it also can help generate content, because now um, you're planting the seed, you're sleeping on it. Very powerful for creativity. You're taking a
Yeah.
shower. How many times did thoughts hit you in the shower? You're driving to work. Keep a notebook, by the bedstand, in the bathroom, in your car, because these winning moments will hit you once that seed is planted. And then now you've got an awesome answer one library of content, you know, and I think you'll. It's just a more robust way to go about doing it. I mean, do you have any input on that, Matt? Or
No, I mean you're right, and I remember doing mine, and you kind of gave me the same advice. The great part of that too was I had just came off of doing my master's, which was great because I got back into write. I don't write for fun or anything, but they got me. I don't mind. I never minded writing research papers. I was taught very well in high school how to do that. And so the nice thing is you're talking about like the word vomit. Like I remember I would, now in the research papers, you have a limit, but the limit's usually pretty good. So you're usually trying to fill space. For this one, the limit's pretty tight because it's 2,000 characters. So you're trying to narrow down space. And I remember writing those papers just before having to do all this. And that's what I do. I just go through and write everything I could get out of my head from my research. And I would start early, which I never do. I'm a procrastinator. I started early, got all this out. All of a sudden, I had a 10-page paper. Bam, there's 7 pages looking at me, and I haven't done anything. I've sat there for like 2 hours on the computer just typing, right? And then, okay, I need to research more. All right, I went and researched this topic, filled that in. And then I started going back and refining. The thing is, by each week, I would just I did the same thing, broke it down into steps. All right, this week, I'm going to have this much, the brain dump is done, right? Next week, we're going to do some more
Mhm.
research, fill in as much more as we could. And then, like you said, as you're going to work, as you're doing things, all of a sudden the thing, you bought the red car, there's the red car, there's another red car. It just kept on coming. And I mean, talk about knocking out, like papers never stressed me out during my doing my master's. And when you do your master's, it's a
Mhm.
lot of papers. And so it worked perfectly for this application because there is a lot of questions and you are trying to get some very important information into a very concise spot. And you want it to be the best that you can deliver.
100%. It is a very tight constraint, the word count. And I'm going to skip ahead to something I advise, and this gets a visceral reaction out of people when I tell them this. But whatever that word count is, shoot for 75% of it. And when I tell people that who have already done that, they're looking at me like, dude, I just assassinated, like 5,000 words. You're asking me to assassinate more? And yeah, I am. Because when think about it from the judge's perspective, they got a stack of these. They're going through a stack of these.
Yes.
When I forced myself to do this constraint, and that's what I did. I was like, if I was a judge, I'm not going to want to read the extra fluff that you might typically insert into some of these academic assignments you've had in the past. They're not going to want to read that fluff. They want to get straight to the point. And it's also kind of a little bit of a communication that says to the judge or whoever's on the receiving end of that, I respect your time. I'm not going to waste your time with kind of default teacher characteristics that are status quo. I'm going to make sure that your time is meaningful and then waste no more. So I doubt any judge read that and was like, oh man, Mr. Barbercheck really respects my time. But there is like a little bit of a maybe subconscious element of like,
Yeah.
a little bit of a sweeter flavor when something just kind of gets right to the point. So now, but like save that for the end, give yourself plenty of time to do that. And then if nothing else, and this is part of good writing habits as well, let's say I say that, go down to 75%, and you're just like, bullshit. Like, I'm not doing that. Do it as a writing exercise, as a writing challenge, as a game. Give
Yeah.
yourself a time limit. Say, if this was a game, and the way to beat this boss is to provide 75% of this, do it. Then see how it looks. You might be surprised, like the clarity that comes from some of that. Another kind of writing challenge, little game that I apply, and this goes back. I was introduced to this as a high schooler, recent. Like I was looking for a job, and I wrote a cover letter. I had my dad look it over, and he took it and he red inked all of the I's in the I'm qualified to do this, I'm qualified to do that, blah blah blah. He just said, get rid of all those I's. He says, that's the same advice that this is the exact same thing my dad did to me, because similar situation. He had approached, so my grandpa gave my dad this advice, my dad gave me this advice. This is a rare instance of multi-generational advice in this fast-moving world that seems to be withholding the test of time. And even then I was like, oh, whatever, dad. But I took it on as a writing game challenge. And then afterwards, you just hold them side by side, and it's like, oh man, it's like washing your window for the first time in 10 years. And you're like, wow, I didn't realize you could see that much.
Yeah.
Right. So that's another, these aren't absolutes, but they are fun little experiments where the proof will be in the pudding.
Well, and just think of how we even work now, right? Like with a caption on social media, we even when I'll put these videos up or little blurbs from this I will put in the captions, let the captions so the people can read real quickly what it is. Do I want to keep on reading? And there's only so much that we're even willing to read anymore. Like if you're thumbing through, like how many people, right, if there's a long description, unless something really hooked you, you're not going to read all the way through that thing, more or less, right? So yes, not only are you trying to stay concise because you have to, now you want to tell your story and get the point out kind of like you're kind of, and I think you mentioned this in our little thread text that we had going on the side about you're telling that story, you're trying to be memorable, but you can use that whole, and I think me and Jordan talk about too, is you can use that whole application as the whole story. And that was the thing, because some questions you could answer with the same answer, but you don't want to do that, right? So, you're right about that whole narrowing down. Because I know for me, I had, let's say I had some that hit 1999, right? Just one under 2,000 characters. But I think I also had one, maybe it was 13 or 1400. And I was like, this is good. I'm not going to,
Yes.
like, anything else I said is just
Take a,
unnecessary. And I left it there.
right.
And you're right. As a
Yes.
judge, we probably really appreciated that.
100%, because you're reading. I treat each and every one of my students with dignity and respect. I maintain a safe lab. And I'm not saying those things are bad. Like, obviously those are good things, but that's just the thing. Obviously those are good things. That doesn't differentiate you from anybody in the pile. If you're taking the time to apply for this prize, the judges assume that the default characteristics of a good educator are already there. So you're just kind of filling up fluff. I know you run a safe lab. I mean, maybe there's a chance you're applying and you don't run a safe lab or care about the dignity of all your students, but it's very, very small, like, and there's only so many words.
Yes.
So I don't need to read that. And it's just, so that's one of the things, like, I would emphasize greatly, is what makes, like, you shop teacher you are. And it sounds like you got into this a little bit with the last conversation with AI. What makes your program the program it is? What makes your students the students they are? And one way to think about that, and I've talked to people and I've helped them before, and they think, oh, I don't have anything, unique. I don't have what they're looking for, blah, 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 blah. Just run through this thought experiment with me. You take two teachers with very similar teaching styles. You give them the exact same classrooms. You give them the exact same, even maybe projects to start out with. You come back in 5 years. What has likely happened since then? I mean, it's going to be like two twins. They might have the same parents, the same experiences, but you're still going to end up with two very different styles of programs from two very different educators. Not to say one's better or worse than the other, but there's going to be some personality in all of this, because it just has to be. It's an art and a science
Yes.
and all of that, and your personality is going to come through that. And so, as a way to further differentiate yourself from the other people in the stack, and just as a good self-reflective exercise, what's really unique about you and your program and your students? That's what should get the airtime.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's, you're right on. Like, it's, trying to emphasize so much on, and they're up to like 1,000 people applying in the first round now. When we were, I think when I applied, I think
Mm-hmm.
they just broke 700. I'm sure when you applied to both times, there was way less. So you got to be memorable out of 1,000 people that first time. Now, don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
Each judge is only reading a handful. They're not reading all 1,000. But each judge in
Right.
the first round,
Yeah.
I know second round, we each had 10. So first round, I don't know, what, probably 20,
Mm-hmm.
25 at least, maybe.
Yeah, sure. I mean,
You, yeah. Keep going, Matt.
whether the stack's 10 or 1,000, you still want to get that same memorable package. And, like, you condensing it to, you got 1,300 words and it's good. And, like, just to kind of help iterate that point, if I ask you what the Nike logo looks like, it's a no-brainer. If I ask you what the Skechers logo looks like, you're probably going to have to think about it a little bit more. The Nike's just a memorable shape. It's two arches, whereas the Skechers logo, sometimes you see it, it's the whole word, it's part of the word, the S is outlined different, whatever else. And so, or another example, you're at dinner with somebody who just takes up a lot of air at the table, and you go off to the bathroom, or they go off to the bathroom. All of a sudden you have like a very short conversation finally with one other person at the table. 2 weeks later, somebody asks you how that dinner went. You don't remember all the air the person took up, but you might remember the little joke or moment of brevity that you had with the one other person that may have offered some comedic relief, or just, a little bit of a breath of fresh air. You will remember that. So that simplicity is really, really helpful, in that. Now, here's a trick I use to kind of help set the scenery in a way that can be memorable, which is to include a quote. If you can get a quote from your students, your colleagues, your administrator, your industry leaders, anybody, and you can include that, which is tough, I acknowledge, in a word count. It's really hard to fit a good quote in that with the appropriate, maybe prequel and post sequel commentary, but you get a lot of bang for your buck, because not only have you created a scene that can be visualized, because now you got any piece of dialogue means you got two characters on the scene. The judges already have an environment in their head, and now they can visualize the two characters, the environment, and the exchange. When you say, well, I run a safe shop, draw me a picture of that. But when I say, oh, the industry leader came in and here's what he had to say, your safety standards exceed that of my, ground level workers, or something like that. Boom. Now you have a visual. You got
Yeah.
two characters, you got a scene. And if I say, hey, draw that out, it'll look like maybe a short comic, but it's way easier than drawing out a representation of I run a safe shop, So, additionally, it's social proof. So we talked about eliminating I, and this is a good way to do this. I'm no longer tooting my own horn, which please do, but I'm
Yes.
letting somebody else, I'm giving up my airtime for somebody else to toot my own horn. I'm looking at that as a judge, and I'm saying, oh, so this isn't just this guy's words. I have, I can corroborate this claim pretty much with, another existing person. That adds weight to your application.
I'm glad you said that, Matt, because that reminds me when I made the finals, and then we had to do I think it was second round, we had to do the video submission. And either way, whenever I had to do my video submission, I remember the first time I replied, I did a tour of the house that the students built, because that was kind of the thing we did, which was nice and everything. But it's kind of like that, right? The students built the house. That was great. There's other students probably build houses. And then the second year when I finally, or no, I did that second year. Anyways, the third year when I finally won, because it took me 3, my video in my finals was I literally took Thomas, and Thomas teaches, the former student teaches with us. I took his resume and I showed his resume, and then how
Yes.
he won. He's now teaching for us. He took this class.
Yeah.
Now he graduated. He is now working for us and sends his students to my program. And then the other part of that video, I took a text
Mm-hmm.
thread from a former student of mine, senior. She took drafting because she needed a class elective to fill a spot her senior year. And the counselor was like, you know what? Go hang out with Matt for half an hour. You'll enjoy your time. She's like, I don't know anything about drafting. Who cares? It's a spot. Her and 2 senior girls had a blast with them. They were awesome. They loved the class. Never going to use drafting again. But because of my connections and her actual background and family with having kind of being blue collar and stuff, I hooked her up with a couple of marketing directors in the industry. And she sent me the text thread of them going back and forth and how potentially setting up a summer internship opportunity as she was in college.
Yeah.
Those are my 2 things I put in a video.
100%.
I wasn't even in the video. It was my voice talking about what it was.
Yes. And beautiful. And everything that you just listed off took a lot of words. But if you had that text thread in front of you right now and you just showed it to me and said, oh, by the way, this was a former student, this is the exchange, boom, that delivery is so right there and then. And you're basically presenting an artifact, or evidence of your success. And that's super valuable. I mean, anybody who's looking to invest money in your program or just energy into your success is going to appreciate that. The other thing too is you can do some of this stuff now. I mean, that's when I did the day by day approach, I had fun because not only did I have this red car effect that I was beginning to detect good content that I would have overlooked if I'd have tried to knock it out in a weekend or whatever else, but it also prompted me to go ahead and just do these things now. I'm not sure if the questions are still formatted the same, but it's like, how will you do this in the future? Well, I just started doing it, whatever the idea was. And then that became content for my, I'm doing this now. I also if you need a quote and you don't have the data or whatever else, like this comes up with a lot of people is, oh, I don't have the formal data. And survey your students, create a survey tomorrow, give that to your students. Now you have data, right? I mean, uh, email, you short on quotes. One of the things I did was during the application process, I just emailed the teachers in the building and I just like, hey, I'm doing this. What can you say about my program? And then I was able to include some of that stuff. And what I found was just, again, the prize was in the process itself, just me taking that initiative. Am I still coming through?
Oh yeah, you glitched a little bit, but you're good, Matt. Keep going.
Okay. But yeah, just taking that, it was kind of like a side quest motivator, where it was like, well, you can go ahead and like, this is a double reason to go ahead and find out what teachers think in your building, which is a good thing to do anyways, whether you're applying for this or not, or what, industry leader, insert stakeholder here. So now the video I didn't have to do. I never had to do a video, but if I was to have to do a video, I'd probably like stick with slides or visuals and then do a voiceover.
That's what
I
I
don't know.
did for my second one.
Yeah, okay. Just because if you try and like narrate live, you always stumble over your words, but and then maybe like, yeah, just see what the video looks like without your audio too. That's always a good exercise. And then hear what the audio sounds like without the video. And then if you can get those both good in isolation, then together it'll probably be, excellent delivery. And then just like a couple revision techniques as we wrap up here that I use is reading it out loud, which a lot of people know, peer review, which a lot of people know. But the one that is hard to do, but it's very valuable, is read it backwards. So start with your last sentence and read it,
Oh yeah,
and then
I
move
remember you saying
backwards.
this. Yeah.
Yes, read that, because when you reread your own work, you're in flow. You're in a state of flow. So you're gonna skim right over typos and double words and all sorts of stuff. And it sucks because you want that state of flow and it's your work and you're like, it feels bulky to go backwards one sentence at a time. It takes a while, but huge ROI as far as your effort versus, the impact of the improvement that usually comes from that.
Yeah. Well, and you talked about, I want to touch on this before we wrap things up. The video, I think they give you a time limit, like a minute or maybe two. I don't know. I feel like we had like, they want you in a time range. So just like your character count in the video, you did the same kind of refining it, just as you did with the writing, you did it with the video, because like I said, you said, the voiceover might be a better option because like I just remember having the video running of me highlighting the resume in that text thread. I had edited the video down so it took like, let's say, 1 minute, and then I just kept reading or talking and talking and talking and talking and then adjusting it and getting rid of obviously the uhs and ums and all that stuff, but just refining. So it was to the point, and then it was like, boom, 59 seconds, got it. And it's the same,
Nice.
whether it's the video,
Yeah.
whether it's the writing. This process can be used for both, right? Why not?
Yeah. Yeah. And you can tell when you're on the receiving end of anything like this, when someone's looking for filler words, or filler time. I watched some videos that was like a minute 59, and it was like, and there is that like kind of, we've all been wired that way at one point or another. You got to fill this many pages, you got to have this many words. But yeah, really, I would say to bring like the cream to the top, you gotta, be willing to maybe even go more condensed than you are allowed. And if nothing else, maybe that's not your final output. Treat it as a creative challenge, a creative exercise, and then hold them up side by side and then adjust your style.
Yeah. And you know what? This everything we talked about, it doesn't have to even just be for this application. This
100%.
prize, right? I mean, any grant
Yes.
you're writing, that you're being judged on, that you need to get concise and to the point, but still bring in the passion and the individuality and being
Yeah.
remembered. It all applies to them no matter what, because you're going and asking these people to pick you to give you these prizes or grant awards. So it is a big deal, and they usually make it tough on purpose.
Yeah. And you can recycle the content. You can immediately, if you want, use the same prompt, change a few things, send it off to one of your industry supporters or could be industry supporters. And
Yeah.
I think I turned a lot of my writings from both years into blog posts. So it is a good exercise again for just, recite, that if you don't win the prize, there's a prize in the process. And that's one of them is you now have a library of content that you could recycle for more of this type of thing.
Yeah. And Tay even said the Harbor Freight Tools for Schools, they do the application questions and videos and prompts. Everything is very intentional. So that way, this application isn't just this application. It is a tool that you can use, just like you said, for any of those reasons. And it's something we are, like you and I both talked about already. You can win the first time. Usually it takes a couple times. And you just kind of get better at it. And I think it's been great, especially for me, just in, gaining support and all that's, for our program.
100%.
So use this as a tool, not just, yes, you are seriously applying for a great prize, but look at it as so much even more. And even when you do win the prize, it becomes even so much more winning the prize. I mean, there's so many more different levels that kind of come along with this. But
100%.
Matt, I thank you so much for coming on. We're trying to keep these concise, so we're kind of at that. We're at the 30-minute mark here, just a little bit over. But everything you said is so true. You were so helpful for me applying. 3 of the 5 that you've helped. I know one of them that we've helped, and we're gonna get him there. He's such a great teacher.
Yeah, I know it.
We won't name drop right now, but so many great teachers out there, and you guys, take all this advice, share it with other teachers, if you that are applying or should apply. And we really hope to see you on the winning side of this thing. It's an amazing group to be part of. So
yes,
well,
100%.
guys, thank you. This is
the end
of episode 3. Yeah.
Yeah. Thanks
Thank
for
you
having
so
me
much,
on.
Matt. Yeah, I'll shut her down here. We'll chit chat for a minute. And good luck to everybody watching.
Yeah, good luck.